Hi friends, this is me Cleta Laurencio, and today what I'm going to talk about is the Environment Protection Act 1986. So when we talk about Environment Protection Act, it is an act to provide for the protection and improvement of environment and for matters connected therewith, whereas decisions were taken at the United Nations Conference on Human Environment held at Stockholm in June 1972, in which India participated to take appropriate steps for the protection and improvement of human environment, and whereas it is considered necessary further to implement the decision aforesaid insofar as they are related to the protection and improvement of environment and the prevention of hazard to human being, other living creatures, plant and property. Now what it means? So the Environment Now Protection Act, year where it has been enacted by the Parliament, and it is the 37th year of the Republic India. Now what it says, it is the aims to protect and improve the environment. Now the act was prompted by the decision taken at United Nations Conference on Human Environment in June 1972, and here it was enacted to implement this decision related to the protection and improvement of the environment and the prevention of hazard to human beings other than living creatures, plants and properties. Now, there are a lot of definitions in this act when we consider, like for example, environment includes water, air and land and interrelationship between these elements. Environmental pollutant refers to any substance present in the concentration that may be injurious to the environment, or hazardous substance refers to any substance or preparation liable to cause harms to human and other living creatures, plants, microorganisms, property or environment. So there are various definitions which will talk about the Environmental Protection Act. Now let us know the general power of the central government. Now it says the power of the central government to take measures to protect and improve the environment. The central government has authority to implement measures to protect and enhance the environment and prevent and control and mitigate environmental pollution, subject to the provision of this Act. The Act outlines measures to prevent, control and mitigate environmental pollution, including coordination of Act by state government, planning and execution of national-wide programs, setting environmental quality standard, limiting industries, preventing accidents, handling hazardous substance, examining manufacturing process, conducting investigation and inspecting premises. The central government establish environmental laboratories, collect and dismantles pollution information, prepares manuals for prevention, controls, abatement and other necessary matters for effective implementation. Now here it says that the central government has the power to take measures to protect and improve the environment, right? Now it including coordination actions by the state government. Okay. Now planning and executing a national wide program for environment pollution prevention, controlling and abatement, establishment standard for environmental quality and laying down standard for emission or discharge of environment. Now here what it talks about the measures. Now what it says that the measures which may include restricting areas for certain industries, like laying down procedure for preventing accident, causing environmental pollution, handling hazardous substance, examining manufacturing process, conducting investigation and research on environment pollution problems, then inspecting premises, establishing environment laboratories and institute, collecting and dismantling information on environment pollution and preparing manuals, codes or guides. Okay, so basically it is to protect the environment. Okay, and what are the certain steps and the procedure to be protecting. Okay, now the central government may, by order published the official's gazette, establish an authorities to exercise and discharge its powers and functions under this Act. Now, these authorities may adopt actions in accordance with subsection 2, subject to the central government supervision and control. Now, the authorities may exercise the power to execute a function as if they were authorized by the Act. The central government may give instruction under section 5 and conduct steps outlined in the order. Okay. Now here it says that the central government may also appoint authorities, right? It is to exercise and perform what powers and functions of the central government. So here there are certain powers and functions of central government, like subject to central government supervision and control. Okay, so what is the basis of supervision and how they can control it? Now, appointment of officers and their powers and functions. Now, central government here it says can appoint officers with suitable designations and powers for the purpose of this act. Now, subject to the general control and direction of the central government or any authority constituted under subsection 3 of section 3 or any authority or officer without prejudice to the provision of subsection 3 or section 3. Now, certain government, okay, central can appoint officers. Okay, so now what powers and designations to be given to them, so the central government will be deciding with the purpose of this act, subjected to general control and direction of central government. So as per the direction of the central government, the officers will be selected. Now, powers to give direction. Now, as it is said that a central government has a power to issue written direction to any person, officer or authority subject to provision of this act. Now, the power include the ability to direct the closure, prohibition or regulation of any industry, operation or process, or stoppage of this regulation of the supply of electricity, water or any other service. This power is subject to the provision of this act. Okay, so when we are talking about the provision is the power is subject to provision of this act. So now certain people are getting certain power, like the officer, then the authorities and so on. Now, rules to regulate environmental pollution. Now, what are the rules to regulate environmental pollution? Now, here it says that the central government may issue rules in the official gazette governing air, water and soil quality standard, environmental pollutants, concentration limit, hazardous substance, handling procedures, handling restriction in various areas, prohibition on industries, locations and procedures for preventing environmental pollution accidents. Now, when we are talking about these guidelines, we also include corrective procedures for accidents. Okay. Now, people are throwing hazardous substances. What will be the effect of it? Like for example, Taj Mahal, because due to the pollution, the Taj Mahal's, the color of the marble is getting changed. Okay. Then secondly, the Ganga water, okay, how it had got polluted, etc. and so on. Now, prevention, control and abatement of environmental pollution. Now, let us know what is talking about this. So, the Environmental Pollution Control Act, that is EPCA, mandate that individual conducting industries, operation or process must not discharge or emit any environmental pollutant exceeding prescribed standard. Handling hazardous substance must comply with procedural safeguard and inform authorities and agency of any discharges. If an occurrence occurs due to an accident or unforeseen event, the responsible party and the person in charge must prevent or mitigate the pollutions. Authorities or agencies must retake remedial measures as soon as possible and recover any expenses incurred. Okay. Now what it says, no person should discharge or emit any environmental pollutant exceeding prescribed standard. Okay. So there should be a limit when they are, throwing the things and also on. Then, basically handling hazardous substance must comply with prescribed procedure and safeguard. Okay, let's take this. Handling. Okay, handling hazardous substance, what must comply with procedure, safeguard, and inform authorities and agency of any discharges. So, there are hazardous substance. Okay, there should be a procedural safeguard. So there should be a safeguard, there should be protection on how to prevent this hazardous substance, and you have to inform the authorities and agencies if there is any discharge. Okay, then it says if discharge of environment polluters must extend the standard, and the responsible parties and the places which it occurs must prevent, mitigate pollution. Okay, so it is like, polluter extend standards, so responsible parties, okay, and the person in charge must prevent, mitigate pollution. So they must prevent it, and secondly they must mitigate the pollution. Now powers of entry and inspections are granted to individual empowered by the central government to perform their function, determine compliance with rules, and examine or test materials. The central government or any officer has power to take samples for analysis, but the results cannot be admissible in legal proceedings unless they are complied with subsection 3 and 4. Now it's saying that powers of entry and inspections are granted to individual empowered by the central government. So here it says the central government has the power to to give them the functions, what they have to perform, to determine with the compliance and rules. So certain rules and regulations are there, and examine and test the materials. So whatever materials that have been disposed, what they have to do, they have to test the materials. So central government or any officer has a power to take samples for analysis, but the results cannot be admissible in legal proceeding unless they are comply with subsection 3 and 4. Now, environmental laboratories are established by the central government to detect and prevent pollution. Then the central government is responsible for ensuring compliance with these regulations and ensuring the safeguard of environment. So here what happened, environment laboratories are established by whom? By the central government to detect and prevent what? Pollution. The central government is responsible for ensuring compliance with this regulation and ensuring the safety of the environment. So central government have to detect. So it is a responsibility of whom? Central government to detect. And there are special environmental laboratories, so where they can find if this is dangerous. Okay, what are the disposal things that are dangerous, and will make preventions for the pollution. Okay. Now, central government can establish and recognize environmental laboratories, make rules specifying the function, procedure for submitting samples, and other necessary matters. So government analyst can be appointed or recognize the central government for analyze. Any document claiming to be report signed by a government analyst can be used as an evidence. Non-compliance with the act or its rules can result in imprisonment, fine, or imprisonment for up to 5 years. Offences committed by companies or government department can result in imprisonment of life or fines. The head of a department is also liable for such offences unless they were aware of the offences or exercise due diligence. So now what is saying that central government can establish and recognize environmental laboratories. Okay. Make rules specifying their functions. So what they have to make certain rules, okay, to specify what are the functions and procedure for submitting the samples. So when now they want to submit a sample, what they have to do? They have to make a certain procedure and necessary matters. Okay. Now, if suppose there is non-compliance with the act of its rule, what it says, it result to imprisonment, fine, so imprisonment for up to 5 years. Okay, so if suppose they are not complying with this act, there is so what they can get imprisonment. If they are not cooperating with the central government, then they have to pay fine, or there will be up to 5 years imprisonment. Now, offences committed by the companies or the government department can result in imprisonment or fines. The head of a department is also liable for such offences unless they were aware of the offences or exercised due to diligence. Now, let us talk about the miscellaneous. Now, the Indian Penal Code 45 of 1860 provides for protection of actions taken in a good faith in accordance with the Central Government Act. No suit, prosecution or legal proceedings can be filed against the government or any officer, employee or authority constituted under this Act. The court cannot take cognizance of an offence under the Act unless a complaint is made by the central government or an authorized authority or officer. The central government may require any person, officer, state government or any authority to furnish report, returns, statistics, accounts and other information. Members, officers and employees of the authority constituted under Section 3 are considered public servants within the meaning of Section 21 of the Indian Penal Code. Okay, so what is saying? Action should be taken in a good faith and accordance with the Central Government Act. Then they are saying no suit of prosecution or legal proceedings can be filed against the government or any officer, employee or authority constituted under this act. Then lastly it says that a court cannot take cognizance of an offence under the act unless the complaint is made by the central government. So the central government have to make a complaint, and if the central government makes a complaint, then only the actions can be taken. Now, central government may delegate certain powers and functions under this act subject to certain condition and limitation. The provision of this act and rules or orders made therein shall have effect notwithstanding any inconsistent provision contained in enactment other than this act. If an act or omission constitute an offence punishable under this act and any other act, the offender will be liable to be punished under the act. So what it says, the central government may delegate certain powers and what functions under this act subject to certain conditions and limitations. So certain condition and limitation will be put. Now provisions of this act and rules or orders made therein shall have effect notwithstanding any inconsistent provision contained in enactment other than this act. Now, the central government may make rules for carrying out process of this act, including standard for environmental pollutants, handling procedures, notification of occurrence, analysis procedures, qualification of government, analysis notifications of offences and intention to make complaints and furnishing report, written statistic accounts and other information. So here it says that the central government may make rules for carrying out purpose of this act, including what? Standard of environment pollutants and handling procedures, notification of occurrence, analysis procedures and qualification of government analyzed. Now, the act mandated that the regulations be put before each house of the parliament for 30 days during the session. If both house agrees to alter or repeal the rules before the session ends, it will take effect in modified form or will have no effect at all. So any change annulment will not impact the legitimacy of earlier action taken under this regulation. So here it says that the act, what it says, it mandates that the regulation be put forth each house of the parliament for how many days? 30 days during the session. And if suppose both the house agrees to alter or repeal the rule before session end, it will only take what? Modified form and will not have effect at all. Okay, so they have to do the agreement between both the house. Okay, thank you guys and have a nice day and keep on watching my videos. Thanks.